everybody. This is a quick start guide to give you an idea on what it takes to install one of our GenRight tire carriers on a Jeep JL. This would be in addition to our written instructions, which tell you all the tool sizes that you need and give you a lot more detail than we're going to give you in this quick video. So the idea is that you've got a couple things to remove on the inside in order to get to, there's hinge bolts right here on the back side. So we're going to go ahead and pull out some of this stuff right now. And some of them are these little tie down points. There's a plastic cover on them. You pop them out and then you can get to the bolt underneath. Do this on all three of these latches. And you pop those out. Okay, once you've removed this bottom piece that kind of locks in this plastic, then you can pull this out. Now, some people like to pull this back, but we find it's a little easier to get to this stuff if you pull it all the way out. Okay, once the big plastic piece is out of the way, take a box knife or a pocket knife and peel back this paper fiber cover so that you can get to the three bolts that hold the hinge on. Do the top one first and swap it out. And then there's another one down here on the bottom, do that too. You don't want to ruin these covers because this is open to the inner fender well and all kinds of dust and water could come inside and get trapped underneath the plastic cover. So you want to reseal these. You can use a piece of tape to seal them back down or glue them back down. All right, so the hinges, there's an upper and lower. They're assembled of two pieces. We use a stainless steel shoulder bolt, a small washer, and a special unitorque nut. So you'll need an Allen wrench and a standard wrench or socket to tighten this up. And you just want to assemble this loosely for now because you're just going to fit everything and then you'll lock it all down when we're done. So just remove these nuts. And again, the tool size is in the paper instruction. They're going to be pretty tight, so don't be surprised if you really got to give it a little bit of extra oomph to get these out. Okay, once the inside bolts are out, you're going to go ahead and pop this loose. Now these are painted in place, right? So you're going to have to try and get the paint to break loose without stripping the Torx. Sometimes that's a little bit of a trick. Sometimes you even have to tap this with a hammer to get that to break loose. Then without scratching the paint, you're going to need to remove these bolts. There's a floating nut plate behind this that's built into the door. So that's how you get to adjust it. So now we're gonna reuse these two bolts. You're gonna have the upper one has the GenRight logo and this little cutout right here. So that's what you're gonna put on here. Just gonna slip that in. And again, you're doing this all a little bit loose just to kind of get it fitted up. You will notice that our hinge doesn't cover the same area right here where they painted the other hinge in place. So if you need to, you can touch that up or use a piece of wrap or something to match the paint right there. Now we'll go back to the inside. If you need to, just lift the door slightly to get these threads started. Do not force these bolts or strip the threads. All right, now that the inside's tight, I close the gate and then I'll tighten these two screws. That way this whole assembly is tight before we remove the bottom hinge. All right, the tire carrier comes with these bushings that need to be installed. Mine's already got it in here, so we're gonna show you how this is done. I recommend that you look inside here, make sure it's clean. If you have a little bit of lube, you can put it on here, but basically put one in and then stick the other in and align it with this steel sleeve. And then you're gonna press these together with a clamp. This one's a little bit fancy, but you can use a regular C-clamp, or if you don't have a clamp, you can even use a piece of wood and a hammer and just kind of push this together. But you wanna make sure that you get this down, and these have to be as tight as you can get them down up against the sides of the barrel in order to fit in the hinge. All right, so now you're gonna go ahead and slide this into position. The top bolt has this little snail on it, and you're gonna drop that into the hole. If you have to, just wiggle the tire carrier a little bit. It should drop right in. Then this little piece is an adjustment that allows you to change how much preload there is on the bushings for the other side. All right, and get the bottom bolt in. You may have to move this around a little bit to get the hole to line up. Just find the right spot. And again, the bolt should drop right in. These are special unitorque nuts that will not come loose. All right, so tighten these up. There's a sleeve inside so that you cannot over tighten them. But you don't have to get crazy because these bolts will not fall off. Just get them nice and snug. So this one you don't need to have as tight because you're going to need to be able to adjust this in just a minute when we get to the other side. For this next part, you need to remove the tail light. There's a small plastic cover inside here that you pop out, and then with a 10mm socket, you unscrew the bolt and take this out. There's only one bolt that holds it in place. You unclip the light so you can set it down on the ground, and you're ready to go to the next step. Using the latch pin, you're going to take the hinge or the latch plate and put it in there, and do it on the top and the bottom. Then we're going to swing the carrier closed and show you how to mark this on the other side. All right, so we've got this here, and you can see that it's too high. This is supposed to sit down inside that little pocket. So I've got my wrench, and I'm going to adjust this down so that that fits into the slot, just like that. Now, I'm going to take my Sharpie and mark through the inside exactly where we need to drill the holes. All right, once you drill the holes, it should look something like this. Now we're going to go in and put in the reinforcement plate on the inside. All right, this is the bracket that goes on the inside, and it lines up on these two screws and these two screws on the inside. First, you're going to slide on these two washers onto the bigger of the bolts inside. Then you're going to fish this plate in and slide it on there. There we go. Then I've got my nuts laid out right here. We're going to put those on. The two larger ones first, then the two smaller ones down below. This is so that when you bolt on the latch brackets, that this has extra material behind the sheet metal because it's going to be taking so much force with a big heavy tire. All right, so you're going to go ahead and tighten the bolts inside and get those nice and tight. These brackets point away from the tailgate. When most people think that they point toward the tire carrier, but they actually point away because otherwise you can't open the tailgate. So when you're orienting these things, they're exactly the same upper and lower, so it doesn't matter. Just get them put on. Before you tighten these down, push the pin in. That way you're sure that it's perfectly aligned, and then you can reach in. There's still plenty of room to be able to tighten this. All right, once these two things are tightened up, you can go ahead and reinstall the taillight. All right, now it's time to mount the threaded rod assembly. If you're going to be running a 40 or a 42, it must be on the top. If you're running a smaller tire, you can run it on the bottom, but either way, you want to make sure that your tire is tight all the way up against the carrier cage when you're actually ready to drive away. Okay, so there's a matching hole on the top and the bottom. If you're mounting this on top, you put your finger in the bottom hole to hold the nut plate up against here. What you want to do is actually, I want you to tighten these here first on the back side because it's going to push the plate all the way back, and then you can tighten these top ones. All right, now it's time to assemble the stop lock. This threads in, and you're going to want to get a wrench and just lock this down. This thing can be rotated up or down, and it'll lock into a position where it will not catch the stop. And this simply bolts on with a couple of Allen bolts. So now, when we drop that into the down position, it locks into place. All right, next is the rubber isolator, big washer, and giant wing nut. So you put your tire on, and you want to make sure the wheel is facing outward so that everybody can see your nice looking wheel. This then slides on into the inside of the wheel. You've got your big washer that backs up that, and then this thing threads on. And you can put a little grease on this or whatever you want to do, but this will tighten up. And you want to make sure you crank this down so that it forces the tire to bite all the way around here up against what we call the tire carrier cage. All right, next we're going to move the license plate out to these outside tabs on the tire carrier. We're adding a third brake light with a license plate light. So now this whole thing just slides onto these tabs, and we put a couple of nuts on, and that relocates the license plate right to the outside of your tire carrier. You put your rear view camera can be taken off from your factory spare and put inside here. Okay, next, you can run your wire through the tube right here, and there's a hole in the bottom where you can pull the wire through this hole. Now, if you think you want to take your tire carrier off, over on Amazon, you can get a nice connector like this that you can put in right here at this junction so that you have the ability to take your carrier on and off, which is a pretty slick way to go. All right, thank you for choosing GenRight. We hope you enjoy your new tire carrier. If you like this video, check out more of our installation videos over on the GenRight YouTube channel.